Have you ever noticed how a great lawyer can make a jury think they reached their conclusion all on their own? It's called the Socratic Method. And if you've ever been cross-examined or just questioned by a clever attorney at a dinner party, you've already felt its power. The Socratic Method is basically weaponized curiosity. It's the art of teaching or persuading by asking questions instead of making statements. Instead of saying, "My client is innocent," a lawyer might ask, "Does any piece of evidence actually place my client at the scene?" See the difference? One is an argument. The other makes you form the argument in your own mind. And when a juror reaches the conclusion themselves, it sticks because it's their idea now. Socrates used this technique to expose contradictions in people's thinking. Lawyers use it to build logic and emotion in a juror's mind, step by careful step, until the truth seems undeniable. The best part? It doesn't feel like persuasion. It feels like discovery, and jurors love discovering things. Picture this. A defense attorney stands up and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the state says my client stole a car, but let's ask a few simple questions." Then the questions start rolling in like, did anyone actually see who took it? Were there any fingerprints on the steering wheel? How many sets of keys existed? Who had access to them? One by one, those questions create doubt without ever sounding argumentative. The same goes for cross-examination. A skilled lawyer doesn't lecture the witness. They ask small, specific questions that lead the witness and the jury down a path. It's like guiding someone through a maze you already know the way out of. By the time they reach the end, they believe they solved it themselves. That's the beauty of the Socratic Method. Control without confrontation. Even in opening statements or in closing arguments, the best lawyers frame their points as questions, such as, what happens when the government story changes 3 times? Would a guilty man take his victim to the hospital for medical attention? If the witness was certain on Monday, but unsure by Friday, who influenced her? Each question plants a seed, and by the time deliberations start, those seeds have sprouted into full-grown conclusions. Jurors aren't law students sitting in a philosophy seminar. They're people. They come from every background imaginable. Teachers, nurses, mechanics, retirees, and they didn't ask to spend their week sorting through a client's mess. So, a lawyer's job isn't just to argue, it's to educate. And the Socratic Method works because it treats jurors like intelligent adults rather than as passive listeners. When you tell someone what to think, they push back. But when you ask them what they think, they lean in. It turns the courtroom into a conversation instead of a lecture hall. And that subtle shift can win cases. Let's face it, people remember what they said more than what they heard. So, if a juror mentally answers your question, they're now personally invested in the answer. They're not just hearing your argument, they're building it with you. This method also cuts through legal jargon. Instead of saying, the state has failed to meet its burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, you ask, did the state really prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? Or are you still wondering what really happened? Boom, same concept, less jargon. The funny thing is, lawyers don't just use this in court. They use it everywhere. When we're preparing a witness, we don't just say, answer directly and don't volunteer extra information. We ask, what happens when you start explaining too much? And let the witness realize the trap themselves. When we negotiate, we don't say, your offer is unfair. We ask, would your client accept the same terms if we reverse them? Even at home, some lawyers accidentally secrete their spouse into folding the laundry first. Not that I'd ever do that. But the point is, asking the right question is often more powerful than delivering the perfect speech. Questions make people participate, and participation creates persuasion. Of course, not every question lands. Ask too fast, and jurors think you're badgering. Ask too slow, and they think you've lost your place. Ask sarcastically, and you sound like a jerk. Ask sincerely, and you sound like a teacher guiding a class through a tough problem. That's why the tone matters just as much as the logic. The best trial lawyers sound curious, not confrontational. They act like they genuinely want to understand. And in doing so, they invite the jury to help them uncover the truth. A lawyer who can do that, who can make a jury feel like they're part of the investigation, is unstoppable. That's when 12 strangers stop being an audience and start being your co-authors. So, what can you learn from all this, even if you're not a lawyer? The next time you're trying to persuade someone, your boss, your teenager, your friend who still doesn't think pineapple belongs on pizza, try asking questions instead of making statements. You'll be amazed how quickly people talk themselves into your conclusion. When used right, it doesn't sound manipulative, it sounds respectful, engaging, and even fun. It reminds everyone that truth isn't something you shout at people. It's something you guide them toward. And in a courtroom full of bright lights, tough questions, and 12 skeptical jurors, the smartest answer is another question. If you enjoyed the Socratic Method, then you'll love learning about the rhetorical triangle.